Now, if someone wants to make an initial contact with
Mhm.
Hestia, where do they start?
Yeah, I think that reading stories always great. I think that just really recognizing where the flame of community is in your life is really for me a place to begin. So noticing what connections you already have with community, noticing what nourishes you and what supports you already is a way to start to invite her energy in. Now, if you want to just be, that's all great and bigger stuff. If you want more practical little things, I always recommend starting with an altar and a space to a deity, because that creates not only physical space, but also energetic space for her to reside. And I would say kitchen, maybe a fireplace if you have that, but somewhere like that where you can maybe light a candle to her whenever you think of it. Maybe you can just sit there and talk about what's nourishing you, talk about your community. That way, just starting to build a dialogue, a connection, and just a frame of reference for who you are and what you might be wanting from a relationship with her.
Yeah, perfect. Now, you've mentioned Hestia, obviously. You've mentioned Aphrodite and several other deities. Now, I know you work with several different deities. And actually, I was really pleased to see you mention it in this book about working with other gods together. Because they don't all get on.
No, I figured that was kind when you're talking about community. So, yeah.
But it isn't something that is spoken about much. And I get questions from people. This deity's presented themselves, but I already work with this one. Can I do both? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I actually wrote an article or an essay, I don't know what you'd call it, for Witches and Pagans back in 2017 or 2018 about this, about how do you work with a whole bunch of gods. So for me, at least, this is the way it looks. It is just like having a bunch of friends. Not everybody has the same needs, but also I want to make sure they kind of all get along in some way. So what I think about is, what do I want from these relationships with the gods? Like, I get clear about what I want, or at least what I think I want. And maybe I think about what they might want from me, and I try to figure out how that's all going to look. Because, life is going to get the way it gets. Sometimes you run out of time for people. Sometimes you haven't talked to that friend in a really long time, and then it gets awkward. So just thinking about this like any other friendship. In terms of, I think the bigger question, though, for folks, or the biggest concern is, what if they don't get along? So here's the thing. Again, I might offer that that's a very human way to look at that. Like that, the gods are kind of, and I also talk about building relationships as though they're humans. So I understand that there's a little tension there. But what I would say is that you would know if gods weren't quite into each other. And usually I don't typically mix pantheons on the same altars. I just don't. And also, this is why learning their stories is so important. Because if they're not really into, I wouldn't put Hestia next to Ares. It doesn't seem like those two would get along because, But it's more about, for me, like if I create like a separate space for different gods, I feel like that's usually enough. And as I build a relationship with folks, you'd probably figure it out if that wasn't really working. I honestly think that as long as gods get attention, that's probably going to be enough. As they get offerings, or most importantly, as long as you follow through on what you said you were going to do, I think that is the most important thing. Because just like with friends, you build more trust and you build more sustainable friendships when you actually do the thing that you said that you would do, more often than not.
Trust and respect.
Yeah. And usually, like sometimes when I feel like not all my relationships with the gods are great, I just schedule more time with them. Calendars are great. I have something every Friday that's like Aphrodite time. And,
Nice.
That's what I'll do. It's like if you have multiple partners, you would do that too, right? You would make sure that everybody had their needs tended to, and not everybody has the same needs.